like kidnapping women and starving them half to death?
Stop motion is a form of animation that aims to create the illusion that inanimate objects are actually moving, living, breathing. And here on YouTube, there are various different mediums that people use, such as Lego, Army Men, and Clay. Stop motion, however, can be a tricky thing to get right. In this video, I aim to help those who are just getting started, or maybe those who have already had some experience but want to be put in the right direction. Any stop motion project can seem like a daunting task. There's quite a lot involved and sometimes it can be quite complicated. I will start with some basic elements will hopefully put people on the right path towards their animation. First things first, you need to have the right equipment in order to create your stop motion animation. At the bare minimum, what you need is a camera and maybe something that passes as a stand. Stands are very important. I'm not going to get too technical in this film, as it's more about the creation of the stop motion rather than what you need. Just about any camera works. If it can hook up to a stop motion program on your computer or can take pictures, it'll work. Hell, I do all my filming on my iPad with the aid of a stop motion app. The second most important piece of equipment is your camera stand. This can be a home-built camera prop or a professional tripod. It just needs to be sturdy. Generally, in most cases, if the camera isn't fixed down properly, it will result in a very clunky looking film that's generally unwatchable. You need to find a secure spot for your camera. Depending on what kind of film you're making, lighting is also very important. When lighting your set, you need to ensure that your lights are compatible with each other and don't flicker. This can involve purchasing the same type of lamp or using the same type of light bulb. For my films, indoors, I usually use a pair of studio lights that I purchased off eBay. To adjust the hardness of your lighting, you can put pieces of paper or certain types of material over the lamp. This is especially good for dealing with surfaces that may be shiny. It reduces the hardness of the light and creates less reflection and less flickering. Different coloured cellophane or plastics can also be used to create different moods. A good thing to keep in mind when you're looking for equipment is that equipment doesn't make a good filmmaker. Just because you buy the best camera out there or the best software isn't going to improve your skills at all. Bad equipment can hamper a filmmaker, but your main focus should be the visual storytelling. Like I said earlier, the aim is to create the illusion of a moving object. If you can get equipment that can do that, then you're all set to go to make your film. You should try and substitute what quality that you may not have in your equipment with the quality of the filmmaking itself. Beginners who get wrapped up in the world of gadgets and gizmos are doomed to fail. Take, for example, the brick film The Magic Portal. It was created in 1989, and so the camera quality wasn't the best, but it still holds up today for its excellent visuals and storytelling aspects. Now that we have equipment out of the way, it's time to start focusing on the filmmaking itself. Starting with frame rate, an animator should consider what kind of frame rate they want to aim to get at. It could depend on what kind of medium you're filming with. For Army Men, I usually film between 10 and 12 frames per second. For Lego stop motions, it's usually 15. Army Men can get away with the lower frame rate for their stiffness, but Lego figures tend to have more movement, so a more fluid frame rate is required. A beginner should start at around 9 to 10 frames per second. 12 is where people generally agree that things start to get smoother. There is this rule I have, that is, if the frame rate is lower than 9 frames per second, it shouldn't be posted to YouTube. That is beginner and practicing level frame rate and doesn't make for good viewing. The example I show here does a decent enough job, but it's not something I recommend at all. Transferring your ideas into the film can often be a tricky thing to do. A beginner will want to keep their animation simple. A simple premise or story allows for more focus. That way an animator can start refining their skills and focus on the animation. For example, a claymation film would probably focus on a piece of clay turning into different things. The appeal of clay is that it can morph into different shapes, so that's probably what a filmmaker would like to exploit. Keeping it simple allows an animator to have more fun while they work, and also provides more simple entertainment for the viewer that will probably want them to come back for more. When you start getting used to putting your ideas down in a simple film, then you can start moving on to more complex ideas and stories. A simple idea allows for a focus of pacing, a focus on animation, and a focus on what you're creating. What I see a lot of beginners get wrong is that they're eager to start posting straight away. Ideas shouldn't be forced, it leads to more sloppy craftsmanship, and a channel filled with stop motion tests and half-finished films isn't going to draw in subscribers or viewers. Animation is going to require a lot of discipline in order to get it right. You will want to find a balance in how you work. You don't want to become a perfectionist where nothing is right and you keep on scrapping your films, nor do you want to become a sloppy animator that just posts anything they film without any filter. A beginner should only animate one film at a time. They should play at their strengths, what they know they can film. Starting simple allows room to grow, and with some patience, you can start achieving greater success. It may not always work out the first time, but if you're passionate about what you're doing, you'll keep on trying and eventually, hopefully, you'll get it right. Okay, so now that we've covered the basics, I want to give out some tips and tricks that I think will give an edge to animations and also eliminate things that tend to annoy me.
You're all under arrest. Go to jail.
Stop motion relies on consistency in order for the illusion to work. Any shots that are blurry during the filming, or if the light flickers, can ruin this. Blurry shots are just quite an obvious thing that you need to get right. No one wants to watch a video that's not in focus, so before you take every photo, you need to ensure that every shot is in focus and not blurred. Something that's much more difficult for new animators to control is light flickering. Light flickering can be a result of multiple factors, such as the set may be exposed to natural lighting that is prone to changing often, or perhaps the lighting equipment is a bit faulty. Camera settings are also a major factor that is often overlooked by beginners. They usually involve exposure and white balance. These things need to be turned off their auto setting, so it can stay consistent. With these turned off, the camera won't keep on adjusting the lighting settings between frames automatically. To avoid flickering, wear a shirt that is dark so it absorbs the light. Have no natural light in the room and close all doors and windows. For army men films, pose changing for a character can often be a tricky thing to get right. An important thing to use is your onion skin. It helps you align up where the body of the character is. I like to start with the head. The head has to match up with the rest of it. The head and the torso are the parts that I try to align when I do the pose change to keep it more fluid. It goes without saying that the pose should also have the same color and be of the same brand. And it also goes without saying that you would be a fool not to animate without your onion skin. If your stop motion application or device has it, please turn it on. Realistic movement in an animation is essential. You could have the smoothest 60 frames per second stop motion out there, but if the movement isn't realistic, people aren't going to buy it. A simple technique called ease in, ease out will breathe life into your animations. This example here was animated at a consistent frame rate, which means the arm was moved at the same pace for the entirety of it being raised. It looks rather stiff and unnatural. Here is the animation again, except this time I'm using ease in, ease out. When slowed down, we can see that the movements are small to begin with, but then they get larger and larger, and then they go back to being smaller and smaller. Here it is again, but with a bit more motion added so you can see the power behind the swing in the arm. Little details like this add so much to your animation, be it an Army Men one, a Lego one, or a Claymation one. Another thing that movement can be used for is to convey speech. Unless you have a computer program that allows you to digitally insert mouths, most of your stop motions aren't going to have any mouth movement. For Lego animations, this could be the Lego figure tilting back and forth, moving their arms or head. Army men tend to just jerk around side to side, which is fairly easy to do. If you don't add these movements in a shot where there's multiple characters, this can lead to confusion. For example, this film by Stop Motion Army.
Do you know if this is an R-Man or not? No.
Here we have multiple characters talking, but we don't know who is actually doing the speaking because all the figures are stationary. It doesn't help either that the audio is extremely poor with people talking in the background as well.
The murder, yes. There is now like 5 guys dead over there.
These methods are pretty much compulsory for any stop motion that wants to be decent. I often see a lot of Lego films that are filmed at a downwards angle. This is the result of the person building their set right on top of the base plate. A better way to frame your film is to build your set around the field of view that the camera has. I usually do this by building up with Lego bricks. Not only can I build the set to the height I want it to be in the camera, but it also allows me to move the set around a bit more, with different viewpoints and stuff like that. I also noticed that a lot of films that do this base plate filming have very open backgrounds where you can see what's going on. Building up the set helps solve this problem, and I also have a giant painting that I painted myself of my blue sky and a more afternoon tone. They are easy to make and they can match up whatever sky I want to have in my film. I recommend that you do it. Pacing in a stop motion film can be a tricky thing to keep track of. This example I have here by the YouTuber Supreme leader SALTVATARFIsh is a good example of poor pacing. In this film we see a stormtrooper stuck on the wrong side of a blast door while his comrade is in relative safety. Now each shot in this film is about the same length, a couple of seconds. The fast pace works for the desperate stormtrooper as it conveys a sense of danger. There is a desperation and rush to get in. However, the scenes where the stormtrooper is safe go for about the same length as well. These scenes should be slower and more calming to convey a sense of safety. It will contrast with the danger field outside and thus lead to more suspense and tension. To overcome these pacing issues, some planning is required, even if it's just mentally. Film the differently paced scenes in different blocks. That way you can keep track and maintain the pace of the scene, then you can go back and edit it later. A familiarity with your frame rate helps you keep track of your pacing when you take your photos. And finally, one of the more important things is your video length. Stop motions work well as a short and snappy 2 to 3 minute video, though in the current state of YouTube, that's not as preferable. What also isn't preferable are 3-second videos being posted. I see lots of stop motion channels do this, where they desperately want to get a video out, so they post a short test or something like that. Videos like these are generally just a waste of time. People don't like to watch videos that are under 30 seconds. Unless what you're portraying in the video is a clever visual gag that doesn't need to be a minute long, people aren't going to click on them and they're not going to watch them, and it's not going to help your channel. A compilation of shorter videos, however, is a viable option. If you want to make shorter, snappier videos, then little video skits would be a good idea. But other than that, you should have a nice, snappy, condensed video that's around 2 minutes long, maybe longer. People like longer videos, but of course that's very hard to do with stop motion. So just start off small and then gradually work your way up to larger things. I hope my video has not only helped you improve, but has inspired you to go out there and create some of your own animations and see just where your creativity can take you. Stop motion is a portal to endless possibilities.